Hello everyone. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. I'm Séverine Sambin, Head of Human Resources for Société Générale in Canada. I'm working in human resources since 20 years, and I had the chance to work in different locations, France, Hong Kong, and since a bit more of 2 years here in Montreal. As a woman, mother, and HR professional within financial industry, gender diversity has always been an important topic that I have tried to promote and embed on my day-to-day life. So you will not be surprised that I have started to volunteer 6 months ago within Women in Governance and help them in the various initiatives and events aiming at promoting gender diversity. So I'm very pleased to be your facilitator today. And on behalf of Women in Governance, I would like to welcome each of you to our virtual forum today. Despite that our event is via Zoom, we would like to make it as much as possible interactive. We will keep some time for Q&A session, so feel free to ask your question in the Q&A chat at any time using the Q&A feature in Zoom. During the next hour, we will deep dive into Sodexo Gender Balance Study. Sodexo has obtained Women in Governance Parity Certification year after year since 2017 and is Platinum level since 2018. So I'm very honored to present you Suzanne Bergeron, President of Sodexo Canada. Good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning,
I know
Suzanne.
everyone, good morning. I know everyone may be impatient to hear from you, Suzanne, but give me a couple of minutes to present you. Suzanne, you joined Sodexo Canada in 2005 as Office Manager in Montreal. You're Vice President for Human Resources, responsible for labor relations, operational resources support, total rewards, payroll, claims, organizational development, training, and talent acquisition. Suzanne is also Sodexo Canada's first woman president. She steers the Canadian leadership team to grow its business financial performance. She represents Sodexo Canada to the company's clients, customers, and 10,000 employees. Suzanne will cover the research which supports the case for gender balance in the workplace. She will also guide us on initiatives that organizations should pursue when working towards and attaining and sustaining parity. Caroline Kotzi, President and founder of Women in Governance, will also bring her view and advice. So one more time, your questions are more than welcome, and they will help us to progress together on gender diversity. So do not hesitate to ask your question during the presentation. Suzanne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Severine, and thank you for inviting me this afternoon. Hello, everybody, welcome. So as Severine mentioned, I'll talk to you a bit about Sodexo. I think that will set the table to why Sodexo decided to go down the journey of a study around gender equality. And then I'll talk to you a little bit about what it means for us in Canada. And I'll close off this conference by sharing a little bit of how we continue to progress, how we don't sit on our laurels at Sodexo Canada. We know we still have a lot to do, and how we also influence our ecosystem. Just make sure the slides are changing. Severine, if you can tell me if you can see.
I don't see the new slide. It's still on the home page. Yes, now it's good.
Perfect. Seems to be a little delay, so bear with me. I'll take just 1 minute to remind everybody, for those who needed the reminder, for those who are celebrating, we are currently in Black Month history. And I believe it's a great opportunity to remind ourselves that the work, the focus, the emphasis, the urgency we're putting around diversity is still even more relevant. So, as we keep progressing, we still have to remind ourselves that we have ways to go, and Black Month history is a great opportunity to have those open discussions. So thank you, everybody. Let's talk a little bit about Sodexo. Hopefully everybody knows this great company I work for, and I've joined back in 2005. Globally, Sodexo is a company that hires about 420,000 employees. We're present in 64 countries. We're proud to say that we serve over 100 million clients every day. So in our language, we like to say that we have the opportunity to improve the quality of life of 100 million consumers daily. We're #1 private French employer. We've got a good engagement rate, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that as we progress in our presentation. But that's Sodexo at a glance. What does it mean for us here in Canada? So for those who don't know Sodexo, we deliver what we call customized solutions. So we improve the quality of life of your employees at your workplace. Might it be through food services, cleaning services, maintenance services. So a large portfolio of on-site services that we provide in the corporate environment, the school environment, the healthcare environment, as well as what we called our energy and resources business, which are remote sites. And in Canada, it means remote northern territories such as Northern Quebec, Northern Manitoba, Northern British Columbia. So Sodexo is present everywhere. In Canada, we are in all provinces and territories. We now have, we've gone from, due to COVID, 10,000 to 9,000 employees. Hopefully this will come back quickly. And we're proud to say that we serve around 1 million clients daily. We're proud to say that we're as well recognized as a top employer for multiple years. And we also have our own foundation, which again, I'll explain a little bit later. How does that impact our strategy around equity? A little bit about our quality of life positioning. As I mentioned, we're pleased to say that we impact the lives of millions of consumers every day. So we train, we develop our people to understand that every point of contact that they have with consumers is an opportunity to make their day a little bit better. So through our different services, that's what we aim to do. We are a private company, we are a business, but we also have part of our culture, the desire to improve the quality of life of the communities that we live in. So we have to have an impact on the economic, the social development environment of those countries that we operate in. As a large enterprise, we do have the responsibility of having that positive impact wherever we are present. So let's jump into our Sodexo gender parity study that was done. So data was collected between 2011 and 2016. So it was 5 years of data collection. It's important for me to share that with you because we want to show that this study has a lot of data. A lot of data beats impression, beats hearsay. It's all about facts. And the first fact that is the obvious one, and the reason why we jumped into this study is what you're seeing on the screen. So women are the largest underutilized talent pool today globally in our economy, which is, when you think about it, completely, it's hard to understand because of the presence of women. If you think of the statistics around graduates and our spending volume as women. So thinking that today, Caroline will probably share and has shared in multiple conferences how women are not well represented at the levels of the boards, of the executives committee. When you read this data around women, it just makes no sense. So based on that simple fact that women are underrepresented, Sodexo decided to jump in and work on this gender balance study. So like I said, data from 2011 to 2016, the first version of that study was released in 2016, and an update of that study was also shared back in 2018. The reasons behind that study were, first of all, to get some of that fact-based information to feed our belief that gender equal teams are more performant. But it was also to wind the discussion around women in leadership. We wanted to include the gender parity knowledge. We wanted to show that it was all about getting that balance between men and women in a team that makes it more performance. Our study was absolutely chaired by our chairwoman, Sophie Bellon, who took over the company back in 2016 after her father retired. So she's behind to thinking that we needed to bring data, we needed to bring those facts to the world. It wasn't a study that was meant to be kept within Sodexo. So what did we look at? I believe I've shared it in some of the conferences I've made. It's one thing for all of us here to say that, you know, gender parity, women in leadership makes sense. It's the right thing to do. And everybody knows that, everybody says that, but the language that speaks to everybody is performance. When you talk to operators, when you talk to business owners, when you talk to business leaders, being able to show factually with KPIs, using their language around performance, showing them that actual teams are more performing if they're gender balanced, I think speaks for itself. So like I said, we covered about 50,000 managers. I like to highlight the fact that the managers that we included in this study were from all levels of our hierarchy. We didn't focus just on senior leaders because it was important for us to show that all levels of management were the key to success of that pipeline for women to move up into the executive roles. We spread our study around 70 entities across the world. We used our global footprint to be able to do that. And our notion of gender balance was that notion of 40-60 women, men, or men and women. So some of the KPIs we were looking at were operating margins, employee retention. As we know, in that talent for war is really important. There's a large price tag attached to it. Client retention. We also know that getting new clients is much more expensive than keeping the ones that we have. Our safety, which is, you know, number one priority for Sodexo, is the safety of our teams. And it's interesting for me to read that gender parity in a team ensures a high increase in safety, and also our employee engagement. So those are the KPIs or a dashboard of the study that we use to measure the data that we collected. So when we republished the study back in 2018 with some updates, we kept the same dashboard, but we also built an action plan. I talked a little bit about the fact that we have that continuous improvement mindset, and we wanted to make sure that we had actions that were communicated globally to all our leaders across our 64 countries about how they could keep that focus on gender parity. So without going in too much details, as you can see on the slide, I did want to share that, you know, it implies that a multidisciplinary team. It implies every aspects of your business to keep that focus. From the HR process, if you think of recruitment, how do we do recruitment? How do we make sure that we feed that pipeline of talent? Mentoring program, development for our leaders. We have at Sodexo global as well as country as well as regional programs to develop our leaders. Might it be just our women leader or men and women. We've got sponsorship programs and we also have our EVRGs. So opening up some gender networks. Most of our countries have their gender networks. So we went from a women in leadership type gender network at Sodexo, and we moved to, I might need some correction there, but I think 2 years ago, we moved to what we call Sew Together. That represents our commitment to gender parity, because we moved from a women in leadership type approach to gender parity with Sew Together, where we need those men allies. If I talk for myself personally, the men that I've had in my career path as mentors, as sponsors, are the ones who helped me with my career as much as the women. We talk about communication. Communication is key. And as leaders in the D&I spectrum, and as leaders around women and leadership and gender equality, we wanted to make sure that as much as we were focused on our internal progress and our internal goals, we were also influencing our ecosystem. We have a large footprint, might it be through our supply chain, our clients, our partners. We have to keep all that ecosystem aligned with our values, and we have to keep them aligned on our goals around gender diversity. So it's all about, you know, yes, Sodexo has made improvements, but how now do we influence externally? So a few key facts that I think are important and hopefully interesting to you is that diversity and inclusion as a whole is something that engages and is a high driver for your employee engagement. So if you look at our 80% and 80.1 in 21, in 2020, it's all about giving the opportunity to everybody that joins your company to be true to themselves and come in to work and be who they are. And that has, you know, everything to do in regards to engagement. It's all about, you know, creating that environment, no matter what country we're in, no matter what region we're in, where people feel they can bring their whole selves to work and also express themselves fully with their different opinions, different views, different cultures. It's all about inclusion. We talked about that gender balance 40-60. So we're looking at gender balance at all levels of our business. Sodexo Canada today, we have that gender balance from our on-site staff, our hourly staff, up to our higher management. And I think it's important to say that we can't underestimate how powerful it is when you're selling your services such as Sodexo to clients, and to be able to show concretely, factually, visually that your team, who you are as a company, represents your consumers. You know, the world is comprised of 50-50 women, men, people from diverse background, cultures. So if our company is that mirror of our consumer base, that is very powerful when you're gaining new clients. And in that war for talent, we talked a little bit about it. Diversity and inclusion, walking the talk, is also a huge differentiator for your brand. You know, when people hear the message, it's one thing. When they can actually measure, see, value what you're doing and live it when they join the company, is even more powerful. As I mentioned previously, we're very proud at Sodexo for those accomplishments that we keep earning year over year. I'm proud to show you what we have in front of us as a recognition, first of all, for the work that our team has done. This has to be carried by everybody at every level of the company. It's not just a Suzanne thing. It's all about our leadership. It's all about our employees. It's all about our employees calling us out when we're not doing the right thing. But I was proud to put this slide together and show you that these are difficult certifications to get. A lot of work, a lot of intent has to be put into being recognized through these different levels. And it keeps us real, it keeps us honest, and most importantly, it makes sure that year over year we progress. I wanted to show you a little bit of what Sodexo Canada is all about and show you in numbers how we represent, what we work on, what we analyze, what we look. When I talked about keeping us real, keeping us honest, it's all about measuring, right? So when we look at Sodexo Canada today and where we were in 2015, we're proud to say that we've improved. Séverine talked about it when she introduced me. I'm the first woman to be named President CEO of Sodexo Canada. So that has changed. You know, Sodexo Canada has been in Canada for 40 years. So that's been a huge change to have me in the role. We've also improved in terms of our senior management, and where we do a lot of work to make sure that these numbers stay where they should be, and with that we have that gender parities, we do a lot of internal promotion. We have a strong philosophy at Sodexo where promotions should be done internally at about 80% and 20% of external talent. We call that refresher pool. But by focusing on internal promotion, that's where you put the energy on the right development plans, on the right talent, that you're able to mentor these women, sponsor these women into these roles. And they're also, like I like to say, I grew at Sodexo. You know, I've grew in age, but I grew in experience. That Sodexo was very aligned with my values, and also accepted the different places I was in my life. When I had started out with Sodexo, I had young children. Now they're almost young adults. So I've evolved with Sodexo, and I was able to do that because of that focus on quality of life and flexibility. So by promoting internally, we're able to manage to cultivate, to nourish that pipeline, and to keep our people engaged. I wanted to share with you a little bit about some of the progress we've made, and with a little bit of our flavor. We tend to look at our business by business segment, how we serve our clients. Two areas of focus where we've put some focus for improvement was healthcare. So our healthcare employees are mainly women, and as you look at our statistics in 2015, a lot of women work in the healthcare environment. So we had to shift some of that energy to make sure that we could balance it out with more men. And the other way around, what we call our energy and resource business. So think about these, camps up north of Quebec, up north of Manitoba. Might it be for Hydro-Quebec and Manitoba Hydro, very harsh work environments where our employees are rotating 21 days in, 21 days out, or 7 days in, 7 days out. They're not easy work environments for both men and women, but especially with women that have to take care of children. So we had to focus on how do we get these women in these roles in that particular business segment, because it's by putting more women in these environments that will influence the work conditions. So we're proud to say that we've improved. There's still a lot of work to be done, but certainly we're seeing that shift in attracting the right talent in the right business lines. Talking about retention. So let's talk about retention in numbers. So if you think of our salary population, we've got a very high retention rate due to, we know it's Sodexo, and it's pretty much across the board, across the world, long tenure. People tend to stay with the company, they grow with the company. Those that choose to leave often come back. So I think, by sharing some of our numbers with you, you'll be able to see that our focus on diversity and inclusion, our focus on adapting our work environment and our offer to our employees has paid off with a great retention. Our voluntary turnover is very low for our salaried population, but as well as for all our employees. So it's been a journey to get to these numbers. It brings its own challenge, but it's a confirmation of our ability to shift our priorities based on our business needs. That was interesting to me to look at this with our team, but we wanted to see if we rated the performance of our male and female within Sodexo the same way. And I'm proud to say that we do. I'm proud to say as well that our high performers are mostly women, but kidding apart, I think it's important to show that mindset around gender equality, gender parity is also reflected in how we rate performance. We're not seeing women having to catch up to males' performance, or we don't seem to be seeing any bias in how we rate performance. I wanted to share with you the evolution around engagement with our men and women. We survey our employees globally, all our employees, or all our more than 500,000 employees every 2 years. And one of the key drivers for us is looking at the differences, if any, between men and women. and getting a little bit more focused on the needs behind those results. So we've been seeing improvement year over year every time we do the global survey. And we're seeing that there's not a lot of changes from 2016 and 18. We've seen a little bit of that jump there for women in 2014 to 2016 due to, you know, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what's been driving that intent, that engagement. But we had, at that point, you know, I took on this new role as I came back from France to Canada. We also had the change in our global leadership. Sophie Bellon took over her father's leadership. I'm taking over the company. We've implemented different programs around flexibility at work to adapt the work environment to women. So a few little key things that were happening throughout that period that could explain that jump. If you look at this slide, it's really interesting to see how, you know, women's engagement around key drivers such as diversity and inclusion, but work-life balance. You know, we hear a lot about that pain or that pain point for women around being everywhere, being everything, being that superwoman. So being able to listen to your employees and putting forward programs or adjusting programs, adjusting the work environment to cater to those needs is key to engagement, as you can see. And we're very proud to see that our women, as much as our men, are pretty engaged around work-life balance. To close off this time together, I did want to talk to you a bit about some of our initiatives, ongoing initiatives, things that we keep doing. Like I said from the beginning, we're not perfect. We've done great things, and I want to recognize the team for doing so. But there's still a lot to be done, and not because, you know, not because we're regressing, but because things change, right? So we need to adapt to those changes, and we need to be forward thinking about the topic of gender equality. So as I said, we moved from what we called our Women Leadership Program to a Sew Together program, which is global. It's all in all our 64 countries. It's in EBRG that we are proud to invest in Canada and globally. I wanted to show you a bit about the progress we've made around the question for women, where we started from, our journey, thinking about women from a quality of life standpoint to, you know, the gender balance study to today we're talking about Women's Day, International Women's Day, and our commitment at Sodexo of making the International Women's Day every day. So at Sodexo, we improve the quality of life of our consumers daily, and then we commit to making every day Women's Day as well. So we have different initiatives happening globally around job shadowing programs. And I also wanted to highlight a bit of the work we've been doing with our Stop Hunger Foundation. So globally as well, we have a Stop Hunger Foundation, and we have chapters in each country. And our belief at this point is that by tackling the issue of women poverty, women's critical situation around, you know, food insecurity, will help the entire community. I think it's safe to say that when we improve the quality of life, when we improve the economical situation of the women, the whole community is better for it. Women still have, unfortunately, the greater part of the responsibility of their family, and therefore by improving them, by supporting them, by bringing forward programs that improve their situation, it impacts positively all the community, including men. I shared with you at the beginning of this presentation that one thing that's important for us, because of the progress we've made, because we're being seen as trailblazers, is to influence our ecosystem. So we've had a lot of campaigns going on that we share with our supply chain, our partners, our clients around She Works, our job shadowing program. We've had this gender-based violence campaign as well go on. So we're being very vocal. We communicate externally a lot about our commitment so that we can keep influencing the external world of Sodexo to join this journey. Momentum is part of our mentoring program. It's specific to Canada and it's built to the Canadian needs. Last but not least, as I shared with you, our commitment is to make everyday Women's International Day at Sodexo. We have a very strong gender balance strategy that's driven globally. And my journey is to make sure that this is applied and adapted to Canada. We want to make sure that we offer equal opportunities both to women and men around, the work opportunities, growth and development. We keep investing in these initiatives towards gender equality. We are very open to sharing what we do and to hopefully be copied. And we're really committed to changing that empowerment for women in the communities. Like I said, that's how you make the world a better place, is one woman at a time. So on that, this concludes what I wanted to share with you. Hopefully it answers some of your question, and I'm open to other questions as well. And back to you, Caroline.
Well, thank you so much, Suzanne. It was a wonderful presentation. I love all the things that you've been doing at Sodexo for so many years. And I'm very close, and I've always been very close to Sodexo ever since I met your global CEO, former global CEO, Michel Landel, in Paris. He blew me away, and he really was, what you call the tone at the top. He really represented clearly what Sodexo is all about in terms of ensuring equal representation of women and men at every level. I was also fortunate to speak at one of your global leaders, country leaders event, and realized how many women were at the head of different countries for Sodexo around the globe. So I also wanted to take this opportunity to remind everyone who's on the call, we've got people who are part of organizations that are already enrolled in our parity certification, and they are looking for more ideas of ways to close the gender gap and maybe access higher levels the way that Sodexo was able to. You moved from gold to platinum in 2018 and retained that level ever since. We also have people who've joined us and who've never enrolled in the certification yet and are contemplating potentially bringing their organization into the certification. I think the Q&A period that Séverine Sambin will be moderating in just a few minutes will probably talk to that mainly. But I just wanted to remind everyone that in 2020, more than 60 major organizations have enrolled despite the pandemic. So that to me speaks volume of how organizations are planning to come out of this crisis strong with their entire diversity, being able to have a voice at the table. We also know that nothing is going to happen year one. If an organization enrolls year one, they're at least going to understand where they stand in terms of gender equality, where on the spectrum they are. It's going to give them an opportunity to measure quantitatively and qualitatively what they're actually doing. Too many organizations don't really realize that to be able to affect a gap, well, you need to understand that gap. You need to understand its root causes. You need to realize its magnitude and its source. So that is the best tool. The parity certification is the best tool to allow these organizations to better understand where they stand. Traditionally, Women in Governance was doing all the work around supporting women to develop their leadership, to feel ready to take on the world. But then we realized they would go back into organizations that were traditionally built by men for men, and were frustrated because the culture was still not doing the right thing to allow them to progress. So I don't want to take up too much time because I do want to open up the floor for questions, but I just wanted to say a couple of quick housekeeping items before I let Séverine take over the floor. Well, first of all, in terms of all the actions that we do to support women, we have a very robust mentoring program that we invite anyone who's interested to implement that within their organization to go on our website under the mentoring tab. We also offer governance training programs for women who want to sit on boards and feel they may not have everything that is required. So we equip women to have a very active role on boards, not only nonprofits. Our goal is obviously for these women to take on the prestigious and paying boards. Finally, our gala, our recognition gala. The date is not set yet, but it looks like it's probably going to be on April 8th. We'll confirm all of that very soon. We know that the female co-chair of the gala, like Suzanne, you were a female co-chair of a gala a few years ago, is going to be the president of Pratt & Whitney, Maria de la Posta. So we're very proud to have Maria as a co-chair. She succeeded in a very male-dominated environment. So that will take place this spring and will give us an opportunity to honor the more than 60 organizations that have enrolled. Not all have qualified, but for the most part. And we'll also recognize those that have made it to platinum or have maintained their platinum level. So voilà, c'est tout ce que je voulais vous dire. Je voulais remercier tout le monde pour leur présence également. Just a few words in French pour tous nos amis québécois qui sont ici aujourd'hui. Je voulais également évidemment remercier Suzanne Bergeron pour le temps qu'elle a pris, Séverine Sambin, directrice ressources humaines de la Société Générale, qui est également très impliquée sur le comité certification parité de la gouvernance au féminin. Le plancher est à toi. The floor is yours to moderate the Q&A session now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Caroline, and I'm happy to see a couple of questions in the Q&A session. If some of you still have some questions, do not hesitate to send your question in the Q&A section of Zoom. We will try to answer most of the questions. If some of them are not answered right now, we will try to do a follow-up with you. So Suzanne, couple of questions for you, and maybe I will start with the first one. Regards to the certification, so Caroline mentioned the importance of the certification and the type of certification that Women in Governance is offering. Maybe one question is for you, why did Sodexo continue to apply for external certification and multiple of them that you show on the slide? Especially, when you have reached the platinum level for women in governance, why do you continue to apply for external certification? What does it bring in terms of value for your organization?
Thank you for the question, Séverine. It's a good question, and I'll talk specifically about the certification from the Women in Governance. So first of all, Women in Governance brought together the private as well as the public sector of Canada together to think about, to reflect about the topic around gender parity and women in governance. So the first reason is, when you make it into this circle, this is how you impact the future. This is how you impact your ecosystem. The Women in Governance brings you all of this intelligence, these leaders together, and it's by numbers that will make things change. So that's the first thing, is getting into that circle where we have the opportunities as leader to change the future, to change the present and the future, and to influence. The second thing is, even if you qualify as platinum one year, you have to reapply the next year and show improvement. You can never sit in Women in Government certification. That's why I tell you there's a lot of work into this, because they will not be satisfied with status quo. Mm-hmm. So if we're platinum, we're very happy about it, and we have a role of mentor and to give back, that's for sure. But we also have then to look at ourselves differently and show improvement in other areas that are maybe a little bit more future thinking, forward thinking. And it's all about keeping, as I said at the beginning, keeping yourself honest, keeping yourself aligned with what your employees are asking for. So it's never ending. And that's why we keep recertifying ourselves each year, is to make sure that that progress happens. I don't want to sound negative, but, we've seen some of our not some of our KPIs around gender parity, but in other areas of Sodexo with the pandemic, for example, we've seen things go back, and it just takes an event, it takes a lack of focus to go back. So that's why we keep certifying ourselves. And third, but not last but not least, this certification and the importance that and the credibility around women in governance is also something that speaks to our client. I think we're in a crossroad today where partners, our clients, are choosing us as a company because we align with their values. We're mission aligned. We have at heart to improve the quality of life of employees and their employees, but we have at heart to improve the overall economics of Canada, for example. We have the overall goal as a company and as leaders in Canada to make Canada a better place to be. And for that, you have to have the right partners. And the certification gives you that credibility with your clients.
Okay, thank you so much. Very inspiring. We do have a couple of questions regards to the role of men when it comes to gender diversity. So I will try to group them because maybe you can give an overall answer. One question is about, do you approach leadership development for men differently to speak of gender balance? Can you tell us a bit more also about how engage male to be an ally? And also, what are some action you would suggest for more male-dominated industries, such as construction, to progress in terms of gender diversity?
I might need you to keep me honest with the questions. I'll start from the first one, development. For me, the key to development is to be able to adapt development to both men and women. Everything around gender parity, everything around what we're doing for gender parity starts off with personalizing, customizing, adapting. I liked what Caroline said previously. The work environment was for men, built by men for men. So we have to break that and make sure that we adapt. And that means adapt to both men and women. Women and women have different views on different things, different opinions, different ways of learning, different ways of looking at their career. So we have to adapt. The foundation is the same. We build our programs based on our values and our needs and our business needs. But the secret behind it is all about that flexibility. How do you bring in that flexibility that speaks to women and that flexibility that speaks to men? And, you know, if you think about the question of flexibility around being a leader with children, for example, or having that flexibility when you're taking care of your aging parents, or any topic that's around flexibility, giving the permission to women, that's how it started. It was giving the permission to women to be women in the workplace has also helped men being men of today in the workplace, because things have changed for men as well. I'm not sure I remember the second point, but the last point about, you know, in male dominant environment, I think the key, and it was part of my journey, is take risks. You have to take risks with women's profile to make any dent or change in the male dominated environment. If you're looking to fill roles in the male dominant environment with women that fill the shoes of men, it's never going to work. You have to give permission to these women to be themselves, to take their own leadership and bring that to the table in those environments. And without that, it's almost impossible, because women can't be men. And when we try to be men, we don't necessarily become the best leaders that we can be. Mm-hmm. And Sylvain, I'll ask, I think there was
the second question was more how to engage men to become an ally of gender diversity. If there is action that you have run in Sodexo, you know, that other company can think about?
Yeah, I think the fact, I spoke about it briefly, but the fact that we moved globally from an EBRG that was more focused on women in leadership to Sew Together, which is a group that's now about gender balance, men and women, you have to give them room. If the discussion is all about women in leadership, if the discussion doesn't include your allies, which are men, like I stated in my personal career, men help me get to the role of president, then you're losing out on that pool of knowledge, opinion. You're losing out on their commitment to, for example, sponsorship of women. And you lose out on the ability to educate as well men that might have been groomed in a male-dominant environment.
Okay. You mentioned also in your presentation, Suzanne, a couple of times the importance of KPIs, especially for people who are, very figures-oriented. What are the KPIs that you found the most difficult to track and why?
Well, if I go back to the KPIs that we were tracking, it was all about, all of them were difficult, right? Because it could have been easy for somebody to challenge us and say, well, it happens to be that your gender balanced team is more performance in terms of operating margins or safety or. So what was the challenge of this study, for example, and the challenge that we keep working on is making sure we can collect enough data around the gender parity, that the teams that are gender balanced versus those that are not. It's by comparing those in time with enough data that you're able to bring credibility to all these KPIs. It can't be a one-off. It can't be just measurements that are done with gender balanced team. You have to compare it to those that are not. So it takes time, but once you've built that model where you're consistently bringing in that new refreshed data, it helps bring credibility to your study.
Okay. We also have a couple of questions regards to things you mentioned about attracting women, especially in remote locations. So what was done exactly? Can you tell us a bit more around that? It is just more a question of flexibility at work, or is there any other action plan done on the different location, different site that you have put in place to attract those women?
So there was a lot of little actions, but first off, we started off with, we had some women in these roles. They were very successful. So we needed to highlight them, put them at the forefront and try to understand why these women, why are they successful? Why do they like that type of environment? There has to be a reason. So we featured some of our key talent women in these roles that successfully grew their career in that difficult environment. And for example, if I take the rotations in schedule, being away for 7 days or being away for 21 days when you have a young family, for a lot of us looking at it externally, we're saying, well, that would be impossible for me. But having somebody sit in front of me, and I think of one particular leader that we had that had 4 children, she's like, you can look at it that way, but you can also think that, yes, I'm at work X amount of days a month, but when I'm home and I'm fully present for my family and I'm there every day with them during that period of time. I like that balance, but to be able to have it, I had to count on my community, my husband, my parents. They give you some insight from how they lived it and how this can be successful. Yes, there's the flexibility of work, there's the development piece, giving them the opportunity also to continue to develop themselves, even if they feel far away, disconnected. The connection issue, having, improving connections, improving the technology so that they can keep in touch with their family, feel less like they're missing out on important events of their life was also important. We had programs such as concierge programs where while you're at work, you have the possibility of, for example, earning points because you do physical exercise or you do different activities while you're at work. And these points translate into services that the concierge can render to your family back home. So little programs, again, catered to the demand, the customization of their needs. And it was all bottoms up, right? It was, what do you need for this to be attractive to you and for this to work for women?
Okay, thank you. Um, so Suzanne, one other question a bit different that time. So Sodexo is a global organization, but what is specific to Canada or even more to Quebec, if need be, when it comes to engage manager and employee around gender diversity?
I say the challenge that I still see, and even you know, taking on the role of president, I had that challenge myself. Was the and I'm sorry if I'm franglishing you this, but the imposter syndrome. So where women don't feel that they are good enough, you know, educated enough, or have that personality to be a president or to take on leadership roles. I was sharing not so long ago in another conference that I had somebody on my team that I esteem very much, a young woman, great talent. She's moving up the ladder, but not so long ago, she looked at me and she said, you know, Suzanne, I love working with you, love the team, but I would never want your job. So to me, that's the challenge we still have in Canada, and maybe more specific to Quebec, I don't know, but where we're not there yet, where we as women leaders have been able to communicate or to demonstrate that the work environment is no longer built by men for men, and that it doesn't matter what your family situation is, your personal situation is, that these roles, you know, have to be considered for women or men that have the right savoir-être, and the, you know, the rest will come. But I think we still have a lot to do in making sure that these leadership roles that seem to be still very inaccessible to some population based on their personal preferences about what they want for with their personal life.
Okay. Very interesting. You mentioned also the fact that now, you know, Sodexo want not just to look at gender diversity internally, but is also aiming, you know, to influence your ecosystem and align, you know, your provider with your value. Can you tell us a bit more about, you know, what did you change in your process of selection of vendor or partner to make sure that they also, you know, promote gender diversity with the same value as Sodexo?
So we have a strong commitment, and it's in our policy, it's in our values. I think I've demonstrated that around diversity and inclusion. And that same commitment now has spread to our supply chain. So we've started the work, and I'm sorry, I can't tell you exactly how many years ago, but it must be at least 5. We've started to work with our supply chain. That ecosystem was something we said we can influence. If they want to do business with Sodexo, much like our clients, right? If we want to do business with our clients, they come with requirements. Let's have those requirements for our supply chain. So we looked at our supply chain, and we came to an agreement with them. Everybody that's in Sodexo Canada, Sodexo in other entities as well, in our supply chain, has to have a commitment around diversity and inclusion. It started off very soft with this is what we're going to be asking you with a timeline. This is how we can support you. We also played a role of mentorship to help them build, you know, write that policy, have the actions behind the policy. So this has been evolving in the last years, so that today it's something that is part of our contracts. It's how and we do business and how we do business.
Oh, okay, that's really impressive. We have a couple of questions that go a bit beyond gender diversity, but you know, wider diversity. So one question is that besides Sodexo Canada gender mix, do you have an idea about Sodexo globally? What about international profile overseas and so on? And also another question around the same theme. So you did a lot to achieve optimal gender parity. Is there still things to be done? You mentioned that it's an ongoing process and you want to continue on that, but is there any other type of diversity that you want to focus on also on top of gender diversity?
So globally, it varies by like we said, we're in 64 countries. So together, our initiative around gender balance and equality is chaired by our woman chair. So it's something that the 64 countries of Sodexo carry with full transparency at different levels. Not all countries are at the same level of maturity. I was on a conference last week with what we call our region, which is Africa, Middle East. So they've launched So Together in the Middle East with, to go back to Caroline's point, they've measured themselves. They know where they're at today. I think they were sharing with me that today in the Middle East and Africa, there's 16% of our leaders, which are women, and they've set themselves a goal of that 50% or 40-60 in the next 5 years. So they've measured themselves, they've set a goal, and now they are looking at other countries within Sodexo for mentorship, for sponsorship, for support. So we're at different levels of maturity, but if I talk about the more mature markets, such as the United States, France, UK, most of the European countries, Australia, we're all there. We've done the work to make sure that this is how we do business, because to come back to the study, we know that has an influence on our performance. And I'm sorry, Séverine, what's where we have improvement, where we think, so specific to Sodexo Canada, we've also have engagement within our company around not the women, the gender parity, but we have engagement around people with disability, our cultural diversity aspect as well. We also have groups working around the LGBTQ topic. We have engagement with our Aboriginal population and with our generations. We also have a specific EBRG working on the challenges and the opportunities with having 4 to 5 generations in the workplace. So we overall overlook at 6 different dimensions of diversity inclusions, which, at some point impact women in all of them, and are fully committed with, fully engaged teams that put together action plans yearly to make sure that we never forget.
Okay, so maybe a last question before giving the mic to Caroline, maybe for a few words before we conclude. In terms of KPI outside of gender, what are the other KPIs that you are looking at for diversity? Person with disability, visible minority, and so on.
Yeah, so we measure through our self-declaration survey yearly. Mm-hmm. We look at gender for sure. We look at age. We look at diversity in culture. We look at our Aboriginal population. We look at how people identify in the LGBTQ communities. We look at disability, and I believe that should be all, I think.
Already all that. Because it's one thing to gather KPIs, but then to analyze them and find the right action plan, that's more important things. Thank you so much, Suzanne. Maybe Caroline, you want to say a few words before we close the event today?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to thank you both, Séverine and Suzanne, for a fantastic lunch hour that I think was extremely helpful for a lot of people who are looking to close the gender gap in their workplace. And I just want to remind people that we've got an upcoming webinar, a fireside chat that we will be hosting next week on the 24th, again at noon. And the theme is around the pathway to the boardroom. I will have the privilege of interviewing a very exceptional woman, Phyllis Yaffe. I met her while she was Consul of Canada in New York as we were expanding women in governance into the States. She's now back in Canada. She chairs the board of Cineplex. She also sits on multiple other boards. And the subtitle of the discussion will be, how do you go from librarian to CEO of a publicly traded company? So she will be talking about her extensive experience over the past few decades. And my friend Annick Lapointe, who's the Chief Operating Officer of National Bank of Canada in New York, will be moderating the Q&A sessions. So go on our womeningovernance.org under the events tab, and you can register to this event next week. And I think that's about all the elements that I wanted to share with everyone, and thank everybody for for their attendance, and we have recorded this event. So if anybody wants to share it with colleagues and friends, we'll be happy to send you the link. Alors voilà, merci tout le monde et à très bientôt.
Merci, bonne journée à tous. Thank you, Suzanne. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.